Officer. I will introduce her in absentia. She's held up in some meeting. And we also have Dr. Nyanga, our medical officer, who is also held up in some meeting. At this point, I want to also take this opportunity to introduce our facilitators who have been with us through the training from Monday to this time. So we have Joel from Gender-Based Violence and Recovery Center. We also have Madam Angela from the same organization, and we have Mr. Chege from the same organization. Then we also have the media team to support us here. We have Madam Irene from Kisii University. We have Edgar, who works in the public relations office, but is also a key media personality, Kisii University. And we have Jaffe from the media department, Kisii University. Thank you, everyone. We are hoping to get great insights on gender issues from this training. And therefore, I hand it over to our facilitators on gender issues to take us through the presentations. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and we are happy to have this engagement as Kisii University and Gender Violence Recovery Center of Nairobi Women's Hospital. We are glad because we started this engagement with Kisii University some years back, I think 2015, in addressing or in just advancing the conversation around gender and GBV. And once again, we are back. And for this session, we believe that we will have a very good discussion. And our key facilitators, or the lead facilitator, will be my colleague, Angela Guaro. And of course, my colleague, Chege, will also be supporting in the discussion. So for this moment, I can allow Chege to also give some remarks, and then from there, Angela will take over. Thank you.
Thank you, Joel. To the viewers and everybody in this room, I think our is just to extend our heartfelt gratitude, and we kindly request you to spare this time that we have together to engage on these deep-seated issues, addressing issues of gender, and specifically gender mainstreaming. We'll have an opportunity to understand why we are doing this with the university today. If you have any questions, feel free to ask, comment, or you can inbox from the platform that this session is streaming from, and we will be able to get back to you as soon as possible. I believe it's very important that we have this discussion. We'll also be tackling issues of sexual harassment. So if you feel like there is more information you need, do not hold back. Feel free to contribute to this discussion. Even after the session, we'll be able to leave contacts and linkages that we can be able to further this discussion even more on WhatsApp and even Instagram. So we thank you so much, and we hope that you will not be good. And we also would like you to be an active participant. Yes, you can ask questions there in the DM or in the inbox. So we look forward to having a great less than 2 hours together, and may we be blessed. Thank you. Angela, welcome.
Thanks so much, my colleagues and great committee of Kisii University. First, maybe before I begin, I'll give Joel 2 minutes to introduce BRC is and why we are here, what we do, so that just to have a background of who these strangers are. Yeah, so 2 minutes minimum, Joel, karibu.
Santi. So a quick one. We are the Gender Violence Recovery Center of Nairobi Women's Hospital. We have been in existence for close to 20 years, focusing primarily on prevention, on provision of medical treatment free of charge to survivors of GBV, and more particularly sexual violence survivors, and those survivors who have also undergone domestic violence. Besides medical treatment, we have also been working towards prevention of GBV in different levels, at community level, at county level, and also at national level, engaging with different groups, different sectors, and working very closely with also other non-state and state actors in trying to have long-lasting solutions to issues of GBV. We work very closely with learning institutions from primary level to higher, to the institutions of higher learning. And that's why today we are here with Kisii University. As I said, it's a journey that we continue to work with Kisii University in trying to create safe spaces within the university where everyone's voice counts, where everyone is listened, where we do not have GBV happening, and of course then also trying to strengthen systems and mechanisms and of course policies, so that then we can be able to comprehensively address GBV. At the same time, as GBRC, we have also been engaging in advocacy work, influencing laws and policies, both at national level, at county level, and also working with corporate institutions to find solutions in addressing GBV, because we know GBV cuts across all genders and of course all ages. Of course, is not a respecter of class or social status, and therefore that's why we try as much as possible to work or to partner with various institutions so that we can be able to address it. I think nothing much to add that at this point. I think I can go straight and allow Angela to proceed. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Joel. Like we mentioned, we are really glad to have you. So be our guest, at least for the next hour plus. Would really, really appreciate if you send in through your questions so that we make this discussion today interactive. So today we are basically going to discuss key concepts. There's so much you could discuss about gender mainstreaming, sexual violence, GBV, and anything gender. Would actually need a whole week or more to discuss a few concepts of those. So we've done a highly summarized discussion just to invoke discussion, because we believe this is something we need to do more. This is just a start, and it's the beginning of this committee, and we look forward to have more such sessions. So quickly, our objectives today is just we want to recognize the concepts and the terms. Yeah, I know we learned about GBV school. We understand what, I'm not sure we understand what GBV is, but we can explain gender, sex, gender mainstreaming. I'm not sure we all have an idea what it is all about. So we'll basically navigate that and try to understand what it's all about that. We also want to increase our knowledge about GBV and gender mainstreaming issues in order to stop the occurrence specifically of GBV. We also want to promote dialogue, beginning today on, and even from previous. We want to have a situation where we are talking about this, because GBV is something that people do not talk about. GBV is something that happens in closed doors, and many a times when it's exposed, people are usually quick to cover it up. So we want to have this as a start, to promote dialogue about GBV, gender mainstreaming issues, gender issues that are affecting us within Kisii University. This applies to both staff and students, and also just generally understand what is place in Kisii University if we are to embrace gender mainstreaming issues, and you have to run with it and make or maybe implement policies that are put forward. And lastly, to understand your rights, responsibilities as a person. We would not be having this discussion if we understood everything. So you really need to understand your rights. You need to understand what's your responsibility towards the boosting of gender mainstreaming issues, towards the reduction of GBV issues, as well as supporting gender issues across the university, because we believe these actually affect us directly. If they do not affect us directly, you're so lucky, but I doubt if there's none who's not affected. Yeah, so basically those are our objectives, but we are not limited to that. Feel free to ask any question around the topic that is not covered in the objective. So I want to believe maybe many of us do not understand why we have this session, or maybe ask yourself a question: why should the university invest 2 hours of a time, have a gender mainstreaming committee, have various departments represented in this session? So I just request Edgar to give me a short video. Give me the first one. So let's just watch this video shortly so that it forms a basis of what our discussion today and beyond is all about. Can't hear you. Okay.
If you're still struggling,
Imagine instead of initiating
The first one, sorry. Yeah. First one for colleges.
Imagine 4 high school friends entering college, excited about the opportunities the next 4 years have to offer. During their time in college, one of these 4 women will join a sorority. One will live at home and commute to class. One will aspire to get a PhD. One will study abroad. And, unfortunately, before they graduate, 1 in 4 will be sexually assaulted. Sexual assault is any type of sexual contact or behavior that occurs without affirmative consent. Affirmative consent is voluntary, enthusiastic, continuous, and communicative. Sexual assault and rape are far too prevalent at college campuses. 1 out of 16 men and 1 out of 4 women are sexually assaulted while in college. People of color,
Yes, thank you, Edgar.
people with disabilities.
So if you listen very well, she sounded American or maybe out of the African race, but 1 in 4 that is just a world statistic. That's what was given. So if it means 1 in 4 girls or 1 in 4 ladies in your class would be sexually assaulted or sexually violated as they go through campus. I don't know, maybe Dr. Ali, how many students do you have? Anyone randomly? Assuming you have about 4,000 students. So if statistically you're to say that, I would say if you have 4,000, at least 1,000 women or girls or ladies will be sexually violated by the time they're going through their 4 years. I know for medicine students and law tech, maybe slightly longer, I don't know, but at least 1 in 4. That's way too much, if you ask me. Again, as you heard well, 1 in 16 gentlemen will also be sexually violated. I know there's a debate around how men get sexually violated, how would you force a man to have sex with you, but from our experience and from what is reported to us and what we have learned and heard from the statistic is that yes, it's possible. Yeah. So we are saying all those 1,000 ladies plus other men who have been abused, by the time they get out of the Kisii University gate, if those statistics are anything to go by, would be traumatized, would have sexual violence scars, would be regretting and dreading that moment that kind of violence happened. So bringing it closer home, a few years back, Action Aid did a survey on the occurrence or the severity of sexual violence or GBV issues across 4 universities, actually 4 countries in Africa. Kenya was one of them. The other was Ghana and Nigeria. I've forgotten the fourth one. And these were the statistics. So according to the Action Aid report of 2019. It's online. You can open and interact with it later. 1 in 2 female students, 1 in 2 female students, and 1 in 4 male students have been sexually harassed, at least during their lifetime. So our initial video was about global, and these we're talking about students who are sampled from 4 different countries in Africa, Kenya being one of them. So somehow this could speak, I'm not sure if they came to Kisii University to do the research, but this speaks to the situation status in some of our public universities, and I want to believe Kisii University is one of them. And just a high summary of the report is that the perpetrators reported of the population that was sampled were as follows. Lecturers, you do a good job, but you scored highly at 66% of the perpetrators. Yeah, so are happening between lecturers service staff, which because then this is shameful, because then it means this is beyond culture. So I think the gender mainstreaming committee, you have work to do so that we get down to understanding. Yeah, so before we get to that, so basically that's a baseline of why we are here, why we are here to support the Gender Mainstreaming Committee, why we are here to support Kisii University, ensure that we have a GBV-free zone out of GBV-free zone. For anyone who comes in, for the 1 in 4, we want to eliminate it to 0. You know, like 0 tolerance to GBV, sexual harassment, and other negative issues that emanate from gender abuse. Yeah, so some of the key terminologies that we're going to talk about and concepts. The first one, we're talking about GBV, gender-based violence, gender-based violence. So what is violence? At university level, I want to be able to understand and ensure what violence is, but just to remind us, it's just the intentional use of force. Yeah, physical force, power, just because of your power. So it could happen to one person, it could happen to many people, and it results to both physical, psychological injuries. Yeah. So, and sometimes it could lead to maybe stagnation in development, as psychologists like Dr. Rosen tell us. Yeah. So again, another key concept that maybe we are going to use more as we're talking through this discussion is gender-based violence, which is basically the umbrella term that is used identity.
which means if you identify as a man and look down upon a woman and say you are having a discussion, or someone, husband says, no, you don't talk back to me because you are a wife, or you cannot um, use a certain object or something because you're a woman. So out of it, power relations arise and a fight, or maybe sometimes or violation happen. So this gender-based violence that we're talking about could be physical, sexual, psychological, economic, and social cultural. Yeah. So if you go to the next slide, we continue with our definition. A key definition among other forms of violence that we picked out because it has been spoken to many times and has been reported from
So my comment, we are so what one?
Let's continue.
Technology, the links that they know that we are back online. Give us one video that would simplify what consent is, because I know we really fumble around and argue a lot about consent because of the stereotypes that are there within our society.
Consent.
Yes, please. We transition.
If you're still
Struggling with consent, just imagine instead of initiating sex, you're making them a cup of tea. You say, "Hey, would you like a cup of tea?" And they go, "Oh my God, I would love a cup of tea, thank you." Then you know they want a cup of tea. If you say, "Hey, would you like a cup of tea?" And they're like, I'm not really sure. Then you can make them a cup of tea, or not, but be aware that they might not drink it. And if they don't drink it, then, and this is the important bit, don't make them drink it. Just because you made it doesn't mean you're entitled to watch them drink it. And if they say, "No thank you," then don't make them tea at all. Just don't make them tea. Don't make them drink tea. Don't get annoyed at them for not wanting tea. They just don't want tea, okay? They might say, "Yes, please." And when the tea arrives, they actually don't want the tea at all. Sure, that's kind of annoying as you've gone to all the effort of making the tea, but they remain under no obligation. Did want tea, now they don't. Some people try and the time it takes to kettle, brew the tea and milk. It's okay for people to boil the kettle or brew the tea and add the milk. They're now unconscious. You should just put the tea down. Make sure the unconscious person is safe. And this is the important part again. Don't make them drink the tea. They said yes then, sure. But unconscious people don't want tea. If someone passed out before they'd finished it, don't keep on pouring it down their throat. Take the tea away. Make sure they are safe, because unconscious people don't want tea, or to wake up to find you pouring tea down their throat going, "But you wanted tea last night?" If you can understand how completely ludicrous it is to force people to have tea when they don't want tea, and you are able to understand when people don't want tea.
The many concerns that people raise when it comes to violence, she accepted, she was drunk, she said yes, but remember, unconscious people to don't remove them to safety and watch them get safe and safe and anxious. Yeah. When you agree with a man, for example, like he was explaining, to have sex last week, it doesn't mean if I'm going to walk to your room again next week, it starts and sorry, begins and stopping consent. If we all embrace seeking approval where necessary at whatever stage, without assuming that when they consented so the consent still applies, then would have a GBV free university. And that brings us to our next definition of a perpetrator. So basically, anyone who take consent, anyone who gives someone tea and puts it in their throat, anyone who needs to give someone tea, assumes, then that one is called a perpetrator. So anyone who perpetuates violence is called a perpetrator. Yeah, simple. Yeah. So main statistics that were finished, and maybe all the we need someone to respond to them. Yeah, gender mainstreaming. When we hear about gender mainstreaming, people start thinking about the Beijing conference that these people who are just activists that are empowering the woman's girl child and empowered sana. That is not really a strategy for developing policies, plans for gender equality, and its perspective in order to benefit both men and women. So when we're talking about gender mainstreaming is not there, or is not a concept for women only. It's a concept for men. When your student is comfortable and not worrying even as a man. When your university is not blacklisted with high levels or high reported cases of sexual violence, you win both as men and women. So, and because we need people to jumpstart this conversation, and is a GBV zone. Kisii University takes care of both genders and the gender mainstreaming committee. Yeah. So Kiriama. So we need people to steer this conversation, to steer us towards the right direction. That's why we actually need to champion, support, and work. If you just walk around and feel safe walking around campus, if you have to maybe cross over legislation, there are laws within university that speak to the existing inequalities that are there. So basically, that's why we really need to come on board and support the Gender Mainstreaming Committee. And I want to believe that's part of its bigger mandate within the university. And because we agreed on the statistics, this is actually something that all of us need to support, regardless of your department, be it your engineering, arts, law, communication, I had media, all that. So it's a department that has to be supported because it affects all of us. So further, why do we need a gender mainstreaming committee? Why do we need to talk about GBV? I mean, there are many other issues to talk about. We can talk about budgets. We can talk about the students' body. We can talk about, other things. But why? why do we need to talk about gender mainstreaming? First thing, it's a human rights issue. And human rights are fundamental human rights, God-given rights, you know? God-given rights, just like right to live, right to associate freely, right to talk to someone, right to feel safe, right to meet people, you know? So just right to being a woman, because no one I've heard of anyone wanting to change. So it's just a human rights issue. Is it right or wrong? It's just that. Yeah. Because of the effects, because of what we have seen, because of this issue. So we need to talk about. So another reason why we need to have and embrace this gender mainstreaming is that the university has a reputation and a credibility to put up. Yeah. So it directly affects the university's reputation and credibility. It's not the public relations department to take care of the name of Kisii University. Just assume one day you hit students report rape at Kisii University by lecturers. Where would you want to hide your head? Would you be proudly associated? What would you talk about it? Yeah. What would you want your university to be talked about? Do you want to knock to doors as you're going in for interviews and we know Kisii University, that one just got you could be one of the culprits who got grades through sex. Yeah. Do you want that as a student of Kisii University? Do you want that as a staff of Kisii University? Because then it actually soils your CV. Even if you're to cross over, maybe to greener pastures, then in the interview, like, so we've had rampant cases of sexual harassment. Tell us more about it. Yeah, no, it's a rattling question, and no one wants to do that. So for us to guard the reputation and the credibility of our learning institution, we actually need to ensure that GBV, again, it builds a business case. When we are constantly spending time and resources to discuss GBV issues, to treat GBV issues, we are actually is going there. No, I need emergency contraception because I was raped yesterday. So if like that, it's actually what we just need post-rape care forms. We need repair equipment, you know, and would have to invest in it. Yeah. So it builds our business case to actually economically and both economically and socially socioeconomically for the university to actually talk against GBV. I would want a university that and see Kisii University is a sexual harassment free zone, you know, and we actualize it, talk and walk the talk. Yeah, when freshmen are coming to cases of sexual harassment, well, yeah, remember we're talking about the relationships where this GBV could happen includes could be top down, could be from strangers who walk into our university. The perpetrator, I don't know from the discussion that we've been having, have you reflected upon if you have actually been a perpetrator or not? Have you been listening to a yes or no? Have you been coercing people into relationships, into sexual activities, you know? So sexual violence and sexual harassment could occur from anyone to anyone. And it will come from you. And when I'm training, I usually tell people, if you want to know how a perpetrator looks like, and as Julia, actually know how perpetrators look like. Look at yourself in the mirror. They're exactly that. You are the perpetrator. Post yourself on another, maybe money or power because you are an authority, a boss, a lecturer, a fellow student, or a student leader, and post yourself you are a perpetrator, and we are also here for you because the redemption has come. I do not think there's anyone who wants to sit down in future and remember that I actually raped 10 girls when I was in campus. It's not, so I want to invite my colleague Chege to talk something about the Sexual Offences Act so that we know which provisions of law are there. But before we invite him, let's just discuss what does the law say. So apart from it being a business case, apart from it being a human rights thing, apart from it being the right thing to do, the law says, what does the law say about these GBV cases that happen within your school? So someone said, so have any of these things happened to you at school? Someone said something sexual about how you look. I don't know, because we are online again, this is not so interactive. So I'll just call upon you to reflect. Did someone touch you sexually when you didn't want them? Yeah. And how do you feel about it today? Did someone make sexual jokes or say sexual things that you didn't like? Yeah. Did someone forward things to your phone that you open, you're like, oh, for a moment, you're like, okay, let me, it was just offensive or pornographic in nature. So the of GBV within campus. So I want to invite my colleague Chege and to take us through, just slightly, through a few articles in the Constitution and a few rights that speak to actually the something that you can do. If you realize that the Gender Mainstreaming Committee is not acting and it does not have the team, or maybe they are intimidated by the senior administration and they cannot do much, what is there that can support you? Yeah, thanks. Karibu Chege.
Thank you so much, Angela. If you have any question, any contribution, please you can just write a chat or give a comment even on Zoom. Then we'll be able to synthesize and respond adequately. As I go into probably what the law says, just a small reminder on the issue of perpetrator. Perpetrator could be an individual that does these things or harms somebody. But if you are contributing or supporting or covering, also as an institution, then the institution could go in that essence. So a few things, beginning with the highest level that support the Gender Mainstream Committee or the Gender Mainstreaming team is trying to achieve is the every person has an inherent dignity and the right to have this. Remember, gender mainstreaming is all about addressing the specific issues that we have of women and men and within Kisii University so that we are able to achieve gender equality. And so Article 28 gives us the platform. Then Article 29 also got person, which includes the rights that we are talking about. We are doing this because it's a human rights issue. No one is supposed to be subjected to any form of violence from either public or their private lives. No one is supposed to be subjected to torture in any manner, whether physical or psychological. And we understand that already within a university setting, if it is students, they are dealing with a lot of issues. There is a lot of issues and pressure related to academics. So if we add issues of harassment, it becomes very tough on them. Then no one is supposed to be treated or punished in a cruel manner, inhuman or degrading manner. So everybody is supposed to be treated in a respectful way. We are supposed to relate with each other in a respectful way. So just by looking at what the Constitution provides for us and what we are able to do, then we should be able to really appreciate what we are trying to do with the Gender Committee. And apart from that, there are other very specific laws that address issues of gender-based violence. And we know that Kisii University is committed to upholding the law. So when you get time and look at the Sexual Offences Act, speaks explicitly against issues of sexual harassment and prescribes what the punishment is. It's very explicit on issues of rape. It's very explicit on issues of indecent exposure, so that we know what this committee should do and what you should do, what your role should be, is to create awareness for people who are doing this, because they can action can easily be taken against them. I think that's just a small highlight on what the laws that we are reflecting upon, even as we continue to support the Gender Mainstreaming Committee to do so.
So thank you, Shagir. John, having this proceed.
I think, thank you, Chige. I can just go a bit into specifics in terms of the SOA, or the Sexual Offences Act provisions. And particularly, and where I would want us to be very keen in terms of, is that it's a very punitive law. And a lot of young men and also women also are finding themselves in trouble because they do not understand the implications of their actions in as far as sexual violence is concerned. So you find the Sexual Offences Act provides minimum sentences. And for example, if you defile a child of below 11 years, that attracts a sentence of, that is a life sentence. In short, you go to jail for life. And that has really affected a lot of young men who sometimes want to try things out there, not realizing that the law is very harsh. Defilement of a child below between 12 and 15 years, it provides a punishment of 20 years or even more. The reason why I say it's minimum is that it's the magistrates who determines based on the circumstances of the case to increase the sentence. If you rape or defile a child of 15 to 18 years, it attracts a jail term of 15 years or even more. If you rape, that attracts a jail term of 10 years, or even it can be more. Attempted rape, it's 5 years. So you can see that the law is very punitive. And just to urge us that it's important that we read more in terms of the existing laws, so that we do not find ourselves in trouble with the law. So thank you, Angela. That was my small addition.
Thank you. So I want us to go to some of the myths and stereotypes that actually fuel or encourage the culture of assuming that GBV is just, it was just, that is not GBV, it was just a joke, you know? So some of the myths about sexual harassment and sexual violence, especially sexual harassment, the first one is people who sexually harass others are usually motivated by attractions and desire. I've had this many times when we are training or maybe trying to do outreaches around there in the community, including the very educated people. They would say, Sisi men, we are just visual. If I see something and she dressed badly, then if I just react like that, she's the one who provoked me. And yesterday, as I was training a few students and staff, I asked them, then have you ever walked into a room and met your sister naked? Or maybe your mother, bumped by mistake? You don't go because you want to bump into them by mistake. Why do you run away? Because they're equally naked. Yeah. Well, I got a response that those are relatives and it's taboo. But then I'm saying it's the same constraint that you could apply to a lady who's, and it's basically harassment and just like you say, or tell us sex starts and ends in the mind. If you actually decide that I will not rape, that is rape. She has not consented. I do not know my dress, my time to get trained. The second myth, sexual harassment has been exaggerated. I've had this a lot of times, and Dr. in HR, was it Dr. Sano, would actually agree that they say, I just touched her breast. So did that kill? It was just a touch. I didn't do anything beyond touching her breast. Do you realize how offensive that can be? Yeah. Do you realize how bad that can be? So there's nothing exaggerated. It's your behavior that is exaggerated, that is bad. In this case, the perpetrator. So it's actually frightening. It's insulting. There are people who get insulted by that. So if you're tolerated, it doesn't mean it's right to do so. Because I know there are people who make jokes and like, you mean you made such a joke? And people just assume. Yeah. And we have learned and developed a culture of tolerating abuse, tolerating some unwanted touches, and like, what is so bad? I just punked your ass, which is it's not a just. There's nothing like just. It's either it's good or bad. So in there are gray areas, it's wrong. So it's just a myth. It's not good to water down someone else's feelings because that is what they feel. The people you'd actually abuse like that, and you don't know if they have a history of trauma. You've re-traumatized that person. So let's just avoid watering down abuse, because then it works against reporting. When people respond to say, it was just a touch, and something happens to them, they would not report. They would shy away from reporting. So let's not fuel or maybe just grow the culture of saying it's exaggerated. How can we confirm it happened? What was she doing in that house? How do you go to watch a movie with a man? I mean, you can just go watch a movie with a man and do whatever. Why did she sit on my bed? Yeah. So let's avoid minimizing what survivors report and how they say. Another myth is that if the harasser does not do it intentionally, then it does not constitute sexual harassment. I wish this was live so that we actually discuss what is intentional and not. So, for example, if someone is seated in matatu and we know what happens, especially sometimes even in a motorbike, on a motorbike rather, we have seen many behaviors amounting to sexual harassment, especially specifically assuming to men. Someone is over the man through the waist and tightly holding that man and lying on him, just and the man has to oblige and obey just because he needs business and it has to be done. Yeah, so those are some of the things that we could actually not tolerate. Yeah, among many, many, many other myths which would have loved to share if we had the time. So why should we respond to it? What is the impact? If we do not respond to GBV, what would it lead to? What would it cause? The first thing is that it leads to loss of productivity among students. If someone was subjected to abuse and the following day, the following week, they are restless, they're thinking about it, they're withdrawing, they don't want to talk to people, it actually loses productivity because you don't even have the energy to go to class. And if you go to class, you might not be so productive because your mind will be stuck in the event. Yeah, and that couples up with trauma. You'll agree with me that when we actually sit in circles and try to reflect upon some of the sexual abuse to people, even children, they go on it. It remains as a scar in their mind. It remains as a scar in the history of trauma. That happened to me. That happened, so I don't want to get married traumatized. We have seen people dropping grades as a result of trauma, as a result of stress, as a result of loss of productivity, because you do not have the time to focus. Yeah, instead of focusing on school and grades, someone would be thinking about, am I pregnant? Yeah. What if I'm pregnant? So if they're pregnant, what do we do? Constantly worried. So as a result, grades drop. Increased absenteeism. We've had many cases of students reporting abuse and
fail to come to school because they don't know how to explain the marks that they have over them. They don't know how to explain why they look dull. So people just avoid to resort to avoiding people and sticking to themselves, or maybe sticking to the rooms, or maybe if they were abused and assaulted at the same time, even among staff. GBV, your husband has beaten you and you come in the morning, people are asking, so what happened? Did you fall? Yeah, most of them, we have had excuses like, nilianguka kwa bafu. You know, ama ngombe iliniangusha, ama ngombe ilinikanyaga. But in this case, quote unquote, this ngombe is actually your spouse. Yeah. So, and as HR, you'd have struggles with staff absenteeism. You know, she didn't come today, she didn't come again, she didn't come again. But when you send this person maybe, or you sit down with this person, talk to them, you realize they're going through a cycle of abuse. Someone was fought the entire night, akafukuzwa, they were not able, or in the process of running away, they were not able to pick any changing over clothes with them. So they slept at the neighbors and their clothes can't fit. So they have to find a way of finding their way to work, and without necessarily explaining why they have been and what happened. And that happens a lot, especially if you not develop a culture and encourage people to talk about GBV, discuss about GBV, and giving a platform to people understand that actually when I report GBV in Kisii University, it's taken seriously, and yes, I'll get support. We have seen people commit suicide as a result of rape because of the troll, the stigma that comes with it, the trauma that follows. Yeah, and like I discussed, this I will discuss it again. It damages the institutional image. Like I said, if you actually hit the breaking news, yeah, I actually saw in the media some 2 years ago, there were really many cases of sexual violence, and I do not think it's really a good thing. Yeah, the students deteriorate their morale. So you'd actually get low intake of students, or maybe you just get students who are constantly against the administration because then their needs are not being taken care of. A negative institutional culture, because you do not want to associate or be an institution that tolerates GBV. Huko ukiripoti, huko hakuna kitu inafanyangwa. Huko unasonga tu. Yeah, so that's not especially the best image. So other impacts are damaged interpersonal relationships, psychological distress, which attaches to the trauma that we're talking about, compromised spiritual and moral integrity. We've had people saying, okay, that you mean that lecturer is a pastor? I'm sorry, I hope I don't sound like I'm attacking anyone. I'm just basing this discussion of the experiences that we have had. I'm not saying the abuse comes from lecturers only, but it comes both ways. But in this case, mostly of reported, and from the statistics that were, remember, lecturers were 66. Yeah, and they realize that you're actually a perpetrator. You actually lose that, and you also even assault. Yeah, and loss of profits, of course, definitely, and definitely Kisii University would lose profits because it's a business case. So then we need to create a healthy and safe working environment. And the ball is thrown over to the court of the Gender Mainstreaming Committee. I do not know how, but you really have to push the university to another level, where healthy relationships and healthy workspaces and safe workspaces where people know that they can actually report, safe workspaces where they know that my case will be taken seriously, safe workspaces where people shine away and suffering in silence. University did not give a safe, and even if you're my boss, the university has a support system that would support me actually to put forward my case. And such, as a junior staff, I'm not intimidated by a senior staff. I'm not forced to give in into sexual advances just because someone intimidates me through their authority. Yeah, the other thing is that you need to develop and implement a sexual harassment policy. You have a sexual harassment policy in place.
But my question is, how effective is it? Are staff sensitized about it? Do students know that they actually have a sexual harassment policy that could cover them against policy among students? Because against students, violence among students, we have many cases at GBRC of students to student abuse. Yeah, sometimes we had even a case of where a student forced abortion on another one, and she literally had to lose everything, including the policy. Are people sensitized about it? Do staff know about it? Did they append their signatures on it? Or lawyers would say, me, I didn't find about it. It's in a file somewhere in the chat, so you will not be held accountable. Yeah, so the provide and facilitate education and training about GBV by bringing us on board, and I want to believe other partners and about GBV. We are screaming about GBV in our screensaver, even in our buses, in our transport system, in every office, it has a sexual policy. It's just talking about GBV, discussing about GBV, talking about GBV. Even in classes, it would actually go a long way in opening up safe spaces of expression. Actually allow in the Sexual Offences Act, apart from the one that is in Kisii University that supports me, then it goes a long way towards the prevention of GBV and sexual harassment. Yeah. So you can agree with me that the other thing you do is to establish and implement an internal complaint procedure. I don't know if there is one, Dr. Rose. When someone is feeling aggrieved, or maybe they feel harassed, or maybe they have an issue, or maybe we have a student who was sent out of class by a lecturer because she showed up with a child and she had to attend class. Yeah, or she showed up pregnant and was vomiting. I was like, step out. We don't need people who are vomiting here. And it's something that is beyond their control. What formal internal complaint mechanisms that are there, apart from the country laws? Yeah, do we investigate? So we also encourage that you investigate and respond to sexual harassment complaints and take appropriate remedial action. The challenge of having an internal complaint procedure where people are constantly complaining and none of the cases are brought to closure, or maybe a diagnosis is done and recommendations given on how to avoid or avert future cases, then people just stop believing in the system, which means you would not have helped much. You have an internal complaining procedure that does not help. So ensure that whatever system or mechanism that will be put in place, then it supports the action. We want to see action. I know student bodies will be like, we want to see action, we want to get feedback, but even still with among students, what action was taken? Yeah, what policies are there? And most important of all, always keep confidential records of the complaints that come through. You do not want to walk to a class and everyone turns to look at you because word has round that in the WhatsApp groups, you are the one who went and reported so and so, you're not a good person, so you're not mature enough, so it was just a spank, so it was just a comment, and of course, so it's really important legally to ensure that all the records of people who make formal complaints, all the records that are brought even from hospital, including medical records, to prove as evidence are not shared. Legal provisions. Yeah. So in conclusion, free from sexual harassment. And the most important thing is that it's everyone's responsibility. It is not the responsibility of the Gender Mainstreaming Committee to ensure that people don't rape and get raped. It's actually your responsibility. Well, I think at some point I've ever forced myself on a gentleman or a lady. Then you stop. You speak out about GBV. You share. When the freshmen are coming, you're not rushing to compete as of to who gets the best, yeah, and who gets the most beautiful girl, and how many men will she be subjected to, yeah. So it begins and stops with you. So what we are saying, ensuring that Kisii University is a better place when it comes to gender issues, when it comes to sexual harassment, when it comes to matters GBV, they start and stop with you. So if you actually decide to put an end to all devices by yourself, and everyone takes it upon themselves to ensure that the device doesn't happen, and anytime it happens, they speak out and report against it, then I think would be good to go and will be so free. So that said, I want to say thank you for listening. Open to engage further than today, even as GVRC, reach out through the committee. We'll always have these discussions. If you have any questions, we are taking.
And a man of 25 years.
Yeah, that's not marriage, cannot be deemed marriage. An 8-year-old is a child on the lower side. You know, there are children below 18 and there are children below 12. So 8 years is extremely sad. Name to give it a defilement. So anyone who has sexual intercourse, whether consented, arranged, or non-consented, but anyone who's below the age of 18 years is actually parents are to any organization that supports the rights of the children to involve the parents, GV or UNICEF, you know, be rescued. Yeah, that's
I think this is a lawyer. So the question is, this is
okay.
Yes, it says the Sexual Offence Act of Kenya defines rape to mean intimidation of any kind. And a man.
Okay, Chege will take that bit because administrator who's the woman, but I'm handing it over to Chege. He's the man.
I think I know it's young also. I think I also know thank you for the I think the best way to approach, I know it's an
is being reviewed in the current review process of having a free but the prerogative of the discretion to
something very interesting, like about the stereotypes. That was very interesting and alarming, like when I was speaking, very serious and exaggerated. People think it's exaggerated. We talked about the myths that people are motivated about attraction and desire. I didn't really know that we talked about. It was very inspiring, and then all of our students were in, and they were able to gather a lot of information on the gender-based violence. I think we'll close because we don't have, we'll be able to finish this session. And just like one of our facilitators said, it's open. This is going to be an ongoing conversation. It's not the end. We'll be able to have all the other activities. And also for you members of staff and students out there, the gender mainstreaming committee we're now well trained and well versed in as much as we continue interacting with the office, gender office in Nairobi. We welcome suggestions and comments on how we can improve and update our gender mainstreaming activities here at Kisii University. I think with all these few remarks, we'll call it over unless maybe my colleagues will have something to say. To add, anything? And close the session.
We appreciate that.
Yeah, sure, yes, yeah. Representative, asanteni sana. It's been a rigorous 3 days. I think tomorrow we are winding up with our management. And I believe you'll also get insight into the concerns and why. So they really look into insight on the way forward, so we can, I think, I'm on this gender means.
Thank you.
Thank you, Daktari. Thank you, everyone else. The parting shot is do not force people to take tea. That tea must be consented to taking tea. And let's give our facilitators 3 good claps. 3 go. Thank you. Thank you. Come again. So to our media group, thank you. Thank you so much for streaming this live. To the committee members, thank you so much for the teamwork that you have shown this week. We still have, and we just hope to make this university, leave this university a better place that we found it. And especially concerning gender issues, our hope is to take the gender issues to greater heights. Thank you so much. May God bless you. I request Professor to close for us with a word of prayer.
So for those who haven't Father, we come to you this afternoon Thanksgiving, because we thank you for the gift of life. We thank you for the protection with us up to now. And Father, as we depart from this place and from our various stations, we pray that you be with us. You take care of us listening until morning. In the morning, give you thanks and glory. But whatever we do, Father, may glorify your name. Even our visitors, when they travel back to our places, we pray that you be with them. To continue blessing them and blessing the works of their hands, so that they continue passing this message to people, so that all of us may take care of one another. We pray this, trusting in the Lord Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. Amen.